They say June is a time for joy, for bonfires, square dances, roasted corn, and the accordion weeping in the yard. But that night, the weeping was from fear. The sky was lit up by paper lanterns, but on the ground, the only stars shining were the ones on the leather hats, because Lampião was coming. And it wasn't to dance. It was to settle a score. The party that began with prayers and stomping feet ended in screams, chaos, and the smell of gunpowder replacing the sweet scent of mulled wine. It was supposed to be São João, but it turned into a battlefield, and when the gang appeared in the middle of the crowd, even the accordion player stopped playing and shut his eyes, because right there, the king of the cangacho wasn't looking for fun. He was after justice and blood. If stories like this make your heart beat faster, then show you've got guts. Leave a comment at the end telling me which part of this invasion hit you the hardest. And help spread this tale of chaos told out loud. Now fix your hat, take a deep breath, and come with me to the sertão. The fire's already lit. The sun sank slowly behind the dry caatinga, Brazil's thorny desert-like brush, painting the sky blood red like fresh wounds spilled across the sertão. The sertão is Brazil's rugged backlands, much like America's Old West, harsh, lawless, and unforgiving. That's how Lampião liked it. Long shadows stretched over cracked earth, sheltering those living outside the law. Lampião, the infamous leader of the cangacheiros, Brazilian outlaws much like Wild West gunslingers, adjusted his leather hat, decorated with shining coins, and stared at the silhouette of Angicos rising in the distance. "Captain, the town's just ahead," muttered Corisco, motioning with his rifle. "Too much movement for this hour." Lampião frowned. Something was off. An orange glow flickered along the houses, and even from here there was a buzz of voices. Strange for a quiet night. That day, there were 23 cangacheiros, more than enough to take over a small town. "Even better," growled Virgulino. Lampião's real name. "More people, more money, more supplies. Let's go." The gang slithered through the caatinga, every man in place, trained by Lampião into a disciplined, ruthless war machine. But as they drew closer, the air carried an unexpected scent. Sweet. Corn pudding, roasted corn, and quentão, a spiced hot drink served at Brazilian festivals. And the music? A forró pé de serra, traditional accordion-driven rhythms that make every northeastern heart beat faster. "Virgulino," whispered Dada, one of the veterans. "It's June 24. Lampião stopped cold. It was São João, St. John's festival, the most important festa junina in Brazil. These June festivals are folk celebrations with food, music, bonfires, and dancing. Similar to small-town fairs in the USA, chill ran down his spine. Invading a festa junina could be bad luck, or worse, anger the saint who protects the sertão. "Screw it," he muttered, but without conviction. "We're going in." On the main street, oil lamps lit up the houses. Colorful flags danced in the warm wind, forming a cheerful canopy over the dirt road. In the square, a massive bonfire crackled, surrounded by dozens dancing in pairs to the accordion's wail. The accordionist, a thin man with a gray mustache, looked born with the instrument glued to his chest, playing skillfully as the drummer kept the beat, moving everyone in sync. Then from the shadows, the cangacheiros emerged, Rifles raised, bandoliers gleaming in the firelight. Silence dropped like a hammer. The accordion let out one last sharp note and stopped. Children ran to hide. Men lowered their eyes. Women clutched their children. The king of the cangacho, Brazil's outlaw reign in the sertão, had arrived. Lampião walked slowly to the center of the square, his boots striking the dry earth with a grim rhythm. The silence was so thick that only the crackling bonfire and the wind slipping through the houses could be heard. Everyone knew who he was. The hat adorned with coins, the scars, the posture of a man who had faced death and always won. "Good evening, people of Angicos," he said, removing his hat in a gesture that seemed polite, but was pure mockery. "I see you're celebrating São João." No one answered. Only the muffled cry of a baby, quickly silenced, broke the suffocating fear. Lampião scanned the square. Colorful flags trembling, the smell of pamonha, a traditional sweet corn cake, and canjica, a sweet corn pudding, and music that, just moments ago, filled the night. Now silenced. Then something rare happened. A memory. He saw himself as a boy in Serra Talhada, jumping over the bonfire with his mother, listening to his uncle play the accordion, tasting canjica. When had he last felt joy without blood or revenge? Years of cangaço, the outlaw life of Brazil's arid backlands, had hardened his heart. But there, in that interrupted festival, something shifted inside him. Corisco stepped closer. "Virgulinos, let's go. The longer we stay, the more likely the volantes, government patrols, show up." But Lampião stayed silent, his eyes fixed on the accordion player, clutching the instrument to his chest like a child. The man was trembling, but there was more than fear in his eyes. There was sorrow. You play the accordion?" Lampião asked, taking a step forward. "Yes, sir," the man replied, voice shaky. "What's your name?" "Zé Calixto. José Calixto da Silva." "How long have you been playing?" Zé blinked, confused by the unexpected question. "Since I was a boy. My father taught me, and his father before him." Lampião nodded and walked to a table. He picked up a piece of pamonha and took a bite. The taste burst in his mouth, dragging back memories he thought buried. "Good food," he muttered, and for the first time in years his voice sounded almost human. "São João was always my favorite festival." A murmur spread through the square. Corisco frowned, confused. The cangacheros stood ready, weapons raised, but their captain seemed far away, contemplating the clear sky, the silver moon, and stars that blinked like the eyes of saints. Lampião took a deep breath, as if he could feel St. John himself watching, waiting for his decision. "You know what, Zé Calixto?" Lampião turned to the accordion player and said with a faint smile, "You should never stop a São João party. That brings bad luck." The man didn't know what to say. To everyone's shock, Lampião walked over and sat on a straw chair right beside him. "Keep playing." "But, sir, I said keep playing." Lampião's voice left no room for argument. Zé Calixto looked around, saw the rifles, the fear on everyone's faces. But in Lampião's eyes, he saw something different, not kindness, but longing. With trembling hands, the accordion player adjusted his instrument and began to play. The melody came out slow, sad, like a lament that echoed across the silent square. Lampião closed his eyes, letting the music seep into his soul, like rain on dry earth. "Livelier," he ordered, opening his eyes. "This is a party, not a funeral." Zé Callisto took a deep breath and shifted into a more upbeat forró, a traditional dance rhythm from Brazil's northeast. The zabumbeiro, the man on the drum, still a bit shaken, joined in, marking the beat. Music once again filled the square, but now with a strange tone. Joy mixed with fear, celebration wrapped in tension. Lampião stood up and signaled to his men. "Corisco, send 2 men to guard the city's entrances. The rest can rest, but keep your weapons ready." Corisco leaned in and whispered, "Virgulino, what are you doing?" "I'm respecting São João," Lampião replied bluntly, and there was something in his voice that no one dared to question. The townsfolk remained frozen, unsure whether to run, fight, or simply wait. Sensing the mood, Lampião decided to break the tension in the most direct way possible. "People of Añicos," he shouted, climbing onto a chair, "you can relax. No one's going to die tonight, as long as no one tries to. Be a hero. My men will only take what they need: food, ammunition, maybe some money. But no one will be harmed. It's São João night, and I respect the saint." A wave of almost tangible relief swept through the crowd, though fear still lingered. Some people began to move timidly, while others whispered to one another. Lampião stepped down and returned to the accordion player. "Zé Callisto, do you know Asa Branca?" "I do, sir." "Then play it." The melancholic melody filled the square, speaking of longing, drought, and leaving home, themes Lampião knew all too well. While the music played, he helped himself to more pamonha, a traditional corn cake, and took a sip of cachaça, a strong sugarcane liquor from a nearby table. His men then began to disperse, entering homes and shops, but almost politely, not breaking anything, not terrorizing anyone. It was strange. A civilized robbery, a respectful invasion. Dada approached, his brow furrowed. "Captain, this isn't right. We've never done it like this. People might think we're getting soft." Lampião stared at him firmly. "Are you questioning me, Dada?" "No, Captain, never. I'm just concerned." "Then stop worrying and go help the others. And remember, no unnecessary violence. That's an order. Tonight." Dada nodded, though clearly uneasy, and Lampião noticed many of his men looked confused. This wasn't the brutal raid they were used to. It was something else. Lampião seemed driven by something beyond the usual logic of cangaço that night. Cangaço was the way of life for bands of outlaws, or cangacheiros, who roamed Brazil's arid backlands, the sertão, much like outlaws of the American Wild West. Maybe it was superstition, maybe longing, or simply the exhaustion of years spent as the most feared man in the sertão, the harsh, dry Brazilian hinterlands, much like the Old West. For one night, he just wanted to feel human again. The music continued, and little by little, people began to relax. A child slipped from her mother's grasp and approached Corisco, curious about the gleaming bandoliers across his chest. A woman offered canjica, a sweet corn pudding, to one of the cangacheiros, who accepted it awkwardly. The fear still lingered, but now mixed with a strange sense of camaraderie. Lampião watched everything closely. Fascinated, it amazed him how, when fear eased, the true nature of these people emerged. Hospitality, generosity, and joy, even in poverty. "Captain," said one of his men, arriving with a sack, "we found the town's supplies, corn, beans, flour. Enough for weeks. Take only what we need, ordered Lampião. Leave the rest for the people. The man nodded, surprised. It wasn't the usual way Lampião operated, but orders were orders. The night wore on, and the transformation was clear. The cangaceiros, once tense and ready for combat, began to relax. Zé Callisto's hypnotic music and the smell of São João food awakened old memories. Before becoming outlaws, they had all been sons, brothers, men who once danced at festivals like this. Corisco approached, holding a plate of pamonha. Virgulino. It's been a long time since I ate one of these. Reminds me of my mother. Then eat and enjoy. Nights like this are rare for us, replied Lampião, and it was true. The cangaço left little room for moments like this, always fleeing, fighting, watching. Rarely could they just sit, eat well, and listen to music. Zé Callisto, sensing the lighter mood, played with more confidence. The music grew stronger. Some townsfolk even began timidly clapping along. An elderly woman dared to softly sing. Lampião felt something long forgotten. Peace, not exactly happiness, but an absence of conflict that almost hurt. For brief moments, he forgot that he was the king of the cangaço, with a price on his head, hunted across the sertão. But as always, reality returned quickly. A lookout rushed down the street, making discreet signals. Lampião stood up, instantly alert, all the tranquility evaporating like water on the hot sertão ground. "What is it?" he asked, in a low voice. "Movement. On the northern road, Captain. Looks like a volante." Lampião's stomach tightened. The volantes, military police troops, specially trained to hunt them down. The police troops were on their way. These were the volantes, special forces trained to hunt down cangaceiros, outlaws from Brazil's dry backlands, much like bandits from the American Wild West. If they were coming to Angicos, it meant someone had tipped them off. Lampião scanned the crowd, looking for a traitor. But all he saw were relaxed faces, maybe too relaxed. "How many men?" he whispered. Hard to say in the dark, but judging by the noise, 15, maybe 20. Calculated fast, his men were sharpshooters. They knew this rough terrain well, but a firefight inside the town could hurt civilians, and deep down, he didn't want the night to end in blood. "Tell the others," he ordered. "Get ready to leave." Quietly, the message spread in hushed voices as Lampião turned to the accordion player, still playing, unaware of the danger. "Zé Callisto," he called. "Yes, sir." "How long would it take a rider to get here from the northern road?" "Maybe 20 minutes, 15 if he's in a hurry. Enough time to slip away without a fight, but not enough to enjoy the party much longer." That old frustration flared up inside him. Every time he found a moment of peace, violence came looking. But then, a crazy idea. If there had to be a confrontation, let it be unforgettable. He turned to Zé Callisto with a strange grin. "You know how to play dance music, like a quadrilha, a traditional group dance from Brazil's June festivals, kind of like a square dance?" "Of course, sir. That's my specialty." "Then get that. Accordion ready. We're going to fire up this party." Zé looked confused, but nodded. Lampião climbed back onto the chair, his voice booming. "People of Angicos, why's everyone standing around? Is this São João or a funeral?" São João, or St. John's Festival, is the most important holiday in Brazil's sertão, the arid backlands, much like America's Old West. I want everyone dancing." The crowd exchanged stunned glances. A party led by the king of the Cangacho. Unthinkable. "My men will dance too," Lampião added. But then, his tone shifted. "Listen up. The volantes are coming. They'll be here in about 15 minutes. You've got two choices. Slip out through the side streets and stay safe, or stick around for the most unforgettable São João of your lives." A murmur swept through the crowd. Some gathered their children and quietly slipped away, but many stayed, drawn by fear and a strange fascination. "And you, my boys," Lampião said, turning to his cangacheros, "you're dancing too. That's an order from Captain Vergulino." Corisco, his lieutenant, protested. "You've lost your mind. The police are coming, and we're gonna dance." "Exactly," Lampião replied coolly, hopping down from the chair. "We're gonna welcome those soldiers with a party. Show them how we celebrate São João in the Sertão." There was a method to his madness. The volantes would expect to find outlaws hiding, ready for a fight, not a town in full celebration. Surprise would be their first advantage. Plus, fighting surrounded by music and dancing might rattle the enemy and give courage to his own men. But Lampião wanted more than just to run away. He was tired of abandoning the few joys that the Backlands allowed him. This time, he decided, he would face his enemies his way, in the middle of a party, with music and dancing. "Zé Callisto, get these people dancing," he ordered. The accordion player pulled an upbeat shot rhythm. The sound filled the square. Vibrant, as if it already knew that something extraordinary was about to happen. "Dada, grab your woman and dance," said Lampião. "What woman, Captain? I don't have a woman here." "Then find one." Heite Boom pointed to a young lady still standing in the square. "Miss, would you dance with my companion?" The young woman, eyes wide, hesitated, but nodded. Dada extended his hand, surprisingly gentle. "May I?" They started awkwardly, but soon the rhythm set in. Other cangacheros followed the example, finding partners among the women who had stayed. And the unthinkable happened. Outlaws armed to the teeth, dancing choked with the women of Angicos, while Zé Callisto played more and more lively. Some children clapped. The elders watched, torn between astonishment and disbelief. Lampião himself chose a lady, the local merchant's wife, and started dancing with her. The woman trembled, but Lampião led with respect until she calmed down. "You dance well," he complimented. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. "It's been a long time since I danced." "Then enjoy it. St. John's night is for dancing." While spinning, Lampião never stopped listening. The sound of hooves grew louder. The volantes, the police troops, were coming. With a discreet signal, he called Corisco, who quietly positioned their men around the square, strategically, without interrupting the party. The music continued. The dance continued. But only the cangacheros sensed the tension. They danced, laughed, but their hands never left their weapons. It was a choreography of war, disguised as a celebration. "Zé Callisto," Lampião called, still dancing. "Play louder. I want them to hear our music all the way at the town entrance." The accordion player obeyed. The accordion burst forth, spreading joy, defying fear. The music crossed the streets like a call, like a provocation. "We're here. We're alive. Come." And then they appeared. The volantes, mounted on panting horses, weapons at the ready, expecting to find a town under terror. But instead, they came upon a party in full swing. Couples danced in the square, lit by the bonfire, the music loud, everyone seemingly having fun. The lieutenant leading the troops yanked his horse to a stop, frozen in confusion. It made no sense. They'd been told Lampião was attacking Anguicos, but this looked like a carnival. "What the hell is this?" he muttered. "Looks like—" "A party, sir," the sergeant replied, equally stunned. "With Lampião right there," the lieutenant added, his eyes fixed on the unmistakable figure, dancing calmly at the center. Lampião saw them, too. Without stopping, he smiled at his partner and said softly, "Our guests have arrived. Now it gets interesting." As the dancers slowly noticed the soldiers, tension rippled through the crowd. Lampião raised his voice, commanding, "No one stops dancing. Keep the party going." The lieutenant hesitated. He couldn't open fire in a square full of civilians, but couldn't ignore Lampião either. He shouted, "Lampião, you're surrounded. Surrender, and no one gets hurt." Lampião turned slowly, smiling, a hint of danger in his eyes. "Lieutenant, you've arrived just in time. We're celebrating São João. Why not get off your horse and dance?" The absurdity left the soldiers speechless. "I came to arrest you, not to dance," the lieutenant finally said. "What a shame," Lampião replied, turning back to the music. "São João comes once a year. Arrests, you can try any day." The tension thickened. Some civilians slipped away quietly, realizing they were caught between two deadly forces. But others stood, hypnotized. Zé Callisto kept playing, hands trembling, knowing his accordion held the fragile peace. "Last chance, Lampião," the lieutenant shouted. "Surrender, or we fire." Lampião stopped, locked eyes with him. "You're brave, I'll give you that. But smart too, I hope. Look around. How many civilians? How many children? Will you really open fire in the middle of a São João party?" The lieutenant scanned the square. Dozens of innocents. Opening fire would be a massacre, but letting Lampião escape, unthinkable. "Then step out," the lieutenant demanded. "Man to man, just our groups." Lampião chuckled. "Oh, but the party's just getting good." He turned with that dangerous grin. "Lieutenant, you don't understand. This is no ordinary party. This is a party." With Lampião, this wasn't just a party. It was a moment destined to become legend in the Backlands. He looked at the lieutenant with a mocking smile and said, "Why don't you just relax and enjoy?" Then, to everyone's astonishment, Lampião did the unthinkable. He walked over to a table, grabbed 2 shots of cachaça, and calmly approached the lieutenant, still mounted on his horse. "A drink, Lieutenant?" he offered. "It's good. Local distillery." The lieutenant stared at the glass like it was a venomous snake. Accepting meant fraternizing with the enemy. Refusing could spark violence. "I don't drink on duty," he said curtly. "What a shame," Lampião replied, downing both shots at once. "Good cachaça like this shouldn't go to waste." At that moment, a child who'd stayed at the party broke free from his mother and ran up to him. A boy, about 6 years old, eyes wide with curiosity. "Mr. Are you really Lampião?" The entire square held its breath. Complete silence. Lampião crouched to the boy's level and answered, "I am, son. And you, what's your name?" "João." "João from São João, 'cause my mom says I was born on the saint's day." João from São João, Lampião repeated, smiling genuinely this time. That's a fine name. Tell me, João, do you like parties? Yes, the boy exclaimed, excited, especially with accordion and bonfire. Then let's keep the party going, Lampião said, taking the boy's hand and standing up. Zé Callisto, play a quadrilla. Let's make this a São João dance no one will ever forget. The accordionist got the message and launched into the traditional tune. Lampião quickly organized the couples, his men, the townswomen, even the children. En arrière, Lampião shouted, starting the quadrilla. There they were, armed cangacheros, local women, kids, elders, all dancing in the middle of the square, while the soldiers, still mounted, watched the most surreal scene of their lives. The lieutenant was frozen. What army manual prepares you for this? How do you attack a quadrilla dance? How do you arrest a man dancing hand in hand with a child? Balancez, Lampião commanded, and everyone swayed in unison, smiling. The quadrilla went on, lively, with Lampião calling out the classic moves. Look out, it's raining. Just kidding. Look out, it's a snake. Just kidding. Tunnel. And the couples passed under each other's raised arms, laughing. It was the dance everyone had known since childhood, a tradition that leveled rich and poor, saint and sinner. Meanwhile, discreetly, Lampião positioned his men strategically around the square. If a shootout began, they'd have the advantage. But deep down, he hoped it wouldn't come to that. Somehow there was something almost magical about that party. When the quadrilla ended, everyone was breathless, sweaty, but genuinely smiling. For a few minutes it felt like there were no sides left. No cangacheros, no soldiers, no right or wrong. Just the simple joy of dancing, forró, and tradition. Then, little João tugged again at Lampião's leather pants. Mr. Lampião, do you know how to jump over the bonfire? Lampião looked at the center of the square. The bonfire still burned strong, sending flames up to the sky. It was tradition. Whoever jumped over the fire on São João would have luck in love, grow strong, and keep evil spirits away. Of course I do. João from São João. Want to jump with me? Yes. Hand in hand, they walked to the edge of the fire. Lampião paused for a second, glanced at the lieutenant, and with that tone between mockery and challenge, said, Lieutenant, don't you want to jump too? They say it protects you for the whole year. I don't believe in those superstitions, the lieutenant replied, but your voice didn't sound too sure. Lampião shot back with a smile. You should. In the Backlands, we learn there are forces stronger than bullets and the law. São João is one of them. And before the officer could reply, Lampião and the boy leapt. At the exact moment they soared over the flame, a burst of golden sparks shot into the sky, as if the saint himself had blessed the jump. On the other side, as they landed, the square erupted in applause. Now it's your turn, Lampião shouted to his men. One by one, the cangacheros jumped over the bonfire, some alone, others with their dance partners. It was a scene, no one there ever imagined witnessing. Men used to death and escape, now taking part in a ritual of protection and hope. Carisco hesitated. Standing before the fire, he turned to his friend. Virgulino, this won't bring us luck. We're already beyond God's law. Lampião placed a firm hand on his shoulder. São João protects all northerners, even those who lost their way. Jump this fire, Carisco. Ask the saint to keep us safe one more night. Carisco took a deep breath and jumped. When he landed on the other side, there were tears in his eyes. He wiped them quickly, pretending no one saw. The lieutenant watched it all, not knowing what to think. It was surreal. His men were just as shaken, some even dismounted, hypnotized by the scene. "Sergeant," the lieutenant murmured, "you ever seen anything like this?" "Never, Lieutenant. Not even in a dream. What do we do?" "We can't attack now. It'd be a scandal. Killing civilians at a São João party. The town wouldn't forgive it." "And what if they decide to stay here all night?" It was possible. The cangacheros were relaxed, laughing, dancing. They had no reason to leave. Lampião, as if reading the lieutenant's mind, walked over. "Lieutenant, may I make a proposal?" "What kind of proposal?" "You all stay here, standing guard, making sure no one steps out of line. We keep the party going until sunrise. When morning comes, you give us 1 hour's head start before the chase. Everybody wins. You fulfill your duty. We enjoy São João, and Angicos gets the most famous party this Backlands has ever seen." The proposal was absurd, but it kind of made sense. The lieutenant thought quickly. Arresting Lampião was ideal, but risking a massacre of civilians would be a disaster. He took a deep breath and decided, "All right, Lampião, until sunrise, but my men will keep watch." Lampião smiled and extended his hand. The lieutenant hesitated and shook it. For the first time, the law and the cangacho made a truce in the sertão. "Now let's enjoy this São João," Lampião shouted. Zé Calixto played his accordion with renewed strength, and the square burst back into celebration. Cangacheros told stories to children, women taught recipes to Lampião's men, and he danced, laughed, ate, just living the joy of the night. As dawn broke, everyone knew the spell was ending. Lampião adjusted his hat and gathered his group. Before leaving, he went to Zé Calixto. "Thank you, Sanfonero. This was the best São João of my life." He slipped some coins into the musician's pocket. "Every time you play Asa Branca, remember our party." Then he stopped by little João, sleeping in his mother's lap. "Take good care of him, ma'am. This boy has a story to tell for the rest of his life." Finally, he approached the lieutenant. "Pleasure doing business with you." "The deal's over, Lampião. In 1 hour, I'll start the chase. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. See you soon, Lieutenant." They mounted their horses and rode off slowly as the bonfire's smoke faded into the morning air. The people of Angicos stood in silence, knowing they had witnessed something unique. An hour later, the lieutenant and his men followed. But their hearts stayed behind, with the music and the warmth of the fire. They never caught Lampião. And so, the story of that São João spread through the sertão, becoming legend. Some say he danced with a princess, others that he turned water into cachaça. But the truth is simple. That night, Lampião chose celebration over war, music over bullets, joy over fear, and even today, in Angicos, every São João night, they say you can still hear, far away, Zé Calixto's accordion and Lampião's voice shouting, "Anarie!" Because some legends are eternal, and some nights are just too big to fit only in human memory. If you enjoyed this story, share it with those who love the culture of the Brazilian Northeast. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next legends I'll tell here. And remember, some stories are so strong, so alive. They keep echoing like an accordion's melody crossing the Caatinga, eternal, made never to be forgotten. See you next time